Today we're taking a look at one of my favorite battleships in the game, and one that I often recommend as the very first steel ship you should get. The Bourgogne really is that good. This ship is pretty awesome to play. Not only is it a very powerful ship, but it's very fun. It's not one of those ships that is super strong, meta-defining, and a little boring to play. This ship always seems to be a really fun experience. And I think that has to do with the reload, some of the gimmicks that this ship has, and the speed. The ship is very fast. It's really good at flanking, and we have a reload booster to make up for some sometimes lacking battleship dispersion. I think that we can all be a little bit frustrated with battleships when it comes to dispersion. Not every salvo is going to look like the one that we're about to have on this Drake here. Most of the time, it's going to not just be a flat-out dev strike off the bat, alright? Let's just be real here. This is going to be a good game, though. That's a nice way to start things off, but a lot of salvos are going to be a little bit lackluster, and that's where we have this reload booster to maybe make up for that. A little more consistency comes out of the Bourgogne than other battleships, because we push our Y key in this case, and we get a 10-second reload, and we can just try again. So that really makes up for a lot of the downsides that battleships can have. So suddenly we have a pretty consistent gun platform here. We just need to stay alive and get this ship into good positions to take advantage of those really strong guns. And that's where the speed comes in. This is one of the fastest battleships in the game, alongside a speed boost that is really powerful as well. So we only have 75,000 HP-ish, and really not the best armor. 32 mil plating everywhere is not all that amazing. But the speed and the concealment allow us to disengage and get ourselves into favorable positions, or more favorable positions. In this case, we've certainly taken the flanking to the extreme on this map. A little bit dangerous considering there's a carrier in the game, but it's been worth it at least so far, getting that angle on the Drake, and then a little bit of chip damage in on the Kerr first here. The Bourgogne, I really do love flanking with it. It can play middle of the map, it can play that central position, but I find people tend to angle to it a little bit more, and then I'm forced to use the HE. Not that the HE is bad, we're going to look at that a little later in the game. I'm going to do some serious work with the HE as well, but I just love the armor-piercing playstyle a little bit more. It's a little more satisfying damage-wise to me. We get a nice little sneaky shot here on the Holland, although our DD manages to take him out, which feels pretty good. So decent start to this game as a team. Although we can see that our team is kind of giving up the opposite flank. They are slowly making their way over to this flank. So either we have to seriously push through this flank and win this pretty quickly. Might be a little difficult since we're basically taking a 1v1 with the St. Vincent. And even though we do overmatch his bow, I'm not really all that interested in taking that fight. A lot of RNG that we're going to be relying on if we ever want to do decent damage into the bow of a St. Vincent. Let's just disengage, decline this fight, and maybe turn around to try and get some broadside hits into the guys who might be pushing from C. So the lovely thing about the Bourgogne and its ability to reposition. Not only is the speed great for that early flank, but as soon as you notice where the enemy team is strong, where you think they're going to be pushing, you can very quickly find yourself in a position to punish them for making whatever push or play they want to make. So that's why I really do enjoy this ship. Reload boosters are often best saved for follow-up salvos to get permanent fires, or if somebody pops up broadside and you aren't quite reloaded yet, yeah, just push the button and get another dev strike. I'll admit, those two dev strikes were certainly some of the best salvos we had this game, so pretty lucky that we had our two most accurate salvos into broadside cruisers at the right time. You notice that sometimes the dispersion here into the St. Vincent or even into the GK earlier on, the Azumo that's a little farther away, hasn't been quite so good. So it's not like every time you see a broadside cruiser, you're going to dev strike it. But in this case it worked out. I really do love that reload booster for that reason. It basically guarantees me a salvo into someone making a mistake. There's no downtime where, let's say I'm in a Vermont, I take my shot and I have to wait 40 seconds. There's none of that. I can just guarantee that if I see someone broadside, I'll at least have one salvo into them. St. Vincent goes dark, we do take a bit of a blind shot, and actually manage to Citadel him, which feels pretty good. Our Colombo pushing pretty hard here, so we do want to support him. We've taken some damage already, You can see that we actually can't heal much of it back, so a lot of that's been a little bit more permanent damage, which is a little unfortunate, but the Bourgogne doesn't really rely as much on its tanking ability, I don't think, at least. I play it more as a pure gun damage dealing kind of ship that can tank if need be, but realistically I'm just trying to keep these guns in play as long as I possibly can and trying to almost shoot on cooldown. That's how you're going to have some of these really, really ridiculously strong games. St. Vincent popping out broadside, and unfortunately we can't quite lob the shells over. That is going to be a bit of a disappointment here. These guns are 380s. I should keep that in mind, that they aren't for like Republic guns, for example, where you get the 431s, I believe. So we do lack overmatch on a lot of cruisers, but the shell velocity on the 380s, which can be a downside here, that's a little difficult to lob shells over this island, is very, very useful when it comes to dealing damage at longer ranges against broadside targets. It's not a case where this ship is going to shatter very often against enemy ships. Really, only some of the most heavily armored Citadel battleships at longer ranges is going to be the problem here. So even though the caliber is not amazing, the shell velocity and just the shell characteristics can really make up for that. As you can see, only 14 seconds of lead out to 24 kilometers. Pretty crazy shell velocity there. Not the fastest shells possible. I think the Republic and Patrie would be a little bit quicker, but these shells aren't too bad to lead out to these longer ranges. And as you can see, if the carrier is going to give you broadside at range, it's definitely worth giving that a shot with a Bourgogne. Nakamovs especially do have a pretty big vulnerable Citadel, and we do manage to take them out, which feels great. So there we are, up over 200,000 damage already, and 11 Citadels. Yeah, not the typical Bourgogne game. I can't expect this every time, but my goodness, does it feel really good when it happens. And it's a close game still. It's not like we've guaranteed won this game. We certainly have an advantage here into the late game, especially considering our carrier's alive and theirs isn't. That should pretty much guarantee us a win. But there's a Satsuma to deal with, there's a Sherman to deal with. Those are pretty scary ships. So we do have to be mindful of our HP. We don't want to just push into these guys and die very quickly. The Satsuma, of course, is very much able to overmatch us very easily. And we all know how deadly Sherman is against 32 mil armored battleships. We gotta be a little bit careful with that. And now we're gonna see the strength of the HE, or at least in a little bit. Our dispersion is going to troll us a little bit here and there. So 3 hits only this time, and the next couple of salvos aren't actually going to look that amazing. The HE is good. It really is. Don't get me wrong. I just don't enjoy farming with HE quite as much. I like to get those extra positions, try and push myself to find those broadsides, and then use the armor piercing. There you go. There's a great example of just wonky dispersion every once in a while. It's going to happen. It is a battleship still, after all. I do have 1 reload booster left. And since we're basically committed to farming this Satsuma out with HE, it's likely going to be saved for an opportunity when the Satsuma uses his damage control. That would be the other main reason for using a reload booster, outside of the obvious ones that I've already talked about when it comes to armor piercing. That's a really strong one to save for, and it makes you into more of a heavy cruiser as far as farming battleships goes with the HE. You can really guarantee a ton of HE and fire damage on a lot of these battleships, especially at higher tiers. You will need to do that up against a lot of these super ships, especially if they don't show you a lot of broadside. You're not going to do damage with AP bow-in like this. That's just not going to happen. So don't be afraid to use the HE. It's actually really, really strong. I just think to get the most out of the ship, you do need to be using both the HE and the armor piercing, looking for those good opportunities. There we go. 10,000 damage with the HE. That's a little bit better, although it does take quite a few shell hits to get there. But that's like a Conqueror kind of salvo, although we didn't get the fire in that case. But that is more along the lines of what the best HE spamming battleships can do, those 10k salvos. There we go. Finally, the overmatch catches up with us. That's a pretty big hit, but it's okay. Angled, we don't take a Citadel. It's pretty nice. And there we go. Another massive hit and a fire. And then I'm going to use my booster, probably to try and guarantee a lot of those fires in on the Satsuma was the idea here. And then we get trolled by our dispersion as he turns broadside. I'm still looking for those broadside salvos. Unfortunately, we do end up missing that one there. So I would just swap back to the HE, not too big a deal. This is exactly why we want Expert Loader. This is a really, or gun feeder is it called now? whatever that upgrade is called. I'll show you the captain build later on, but I really, really love that skill on ships that want to be taking both their HE and armor piercing into battle. It's really handy to be able to swap whenever you feel like you need to. And just like that, he damage controlled, double fire, 10,000 damage. That should guarantee us the kill on him. Already up to 283,000 damage, which feels pretty good. We'll try and do one last parting salvo just in case he manages to damage con that last fire, which he does. So I was a little nervous he might live here, but we do actually manage to take him out and collect our Kraken. Yeah, pretty nuts game with a extremely powerful ship. Bourgogne is just awesome, and we do manage to live through his last salvo, actually. I love this ship. It's got to be one of the short list, really, for steel. This thing is just amazing to use. Nearly 300k there, and nearly 3k base, which is a little harder to do these days in battleships after the experience gain changes. So the build that I've been using is very gun focused. We're not trying to mess around with secondaries at all on the ship, which I have done in the past. Not the most useful, but obviously we're going for main battery. You can run propulsion here or steering gears. Even damage control works, but I like steering gears combined with engine boost, which I do have the extra upgrade for engine boost. Gives me an extremely maneuverable ship when I have engine boost available. So I tend to try and save that for times where I need to reposition, or if I know I'm going to be under some pressure, try and save my engine boost for that. And then I'm able to dodge a lot of incoming fire. And then the rest of the build looks a little something like this. Of course, we are going to be running gun feeder, which is just amazing. Like I said, on a ship that uses a lot of both ammo types, you just have to take it. I think it's just that good for 1 point. It's ridiculous. I'm running a bit of an AA spec in the commander in the hopes that if the carrier decides to come after me, I can deter him a little bit more. Bourgogne I don't find dies particularly quickly. I'm not really pushing into situations, so I'm not really wanting vigilance as much or basic survivability. So I'm trying to live against these carriers or against these subs a little bit more. That's the idea here, but I don't know how much it's really worth it. As you can see in that last game, the carrier didn't exactly come after me, so maybe it's not worth it, but that's the build that I'm running. Maybe that means that the ship is just that good that I can throw away 5 or 6 points like that and still be amazing. So keep that in mind. This ship is really good. Even if you don't have the highest level commander, you're going to have a blast in it. As long as you take some concealment, this ship is crazy. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and have a great rest of your day.